Good, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers, sisters. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli wa amma ba'd. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Are we good? Good audio. Okay. All right. Inshallah, with today's session, we're going to try to bring to a close what we started a couple of weeks ago, the biography of story Ali radiallahu anhu and his wife, the daughter of Rasulullah Fatima radiallahu anha. We spoke about them individually, brief biography up until their marriage and up until their moving into a home together. And then we ended there. So inshallah, today's session is going to bring us to a close of the two most beloved to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ended off yesterday's session with the question when Fatima radiallahu anha and Ali radiallahu anhu together came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asking him, between the two of us, who do you love more? So that's when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Ali radiallahu anhu that I love her more than you, but you have more izzah and honor with me than her. So moving on from there, inshallah, this is obviously after their marriage. Initially, when Ali radiallahu anhu and Fatima radiallahu anha moved into their home together, it was further away from the house of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was a bit of a distance. Now, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every time he would get married and there would be a new apartment built for one of his wives, it would have been on the land of a Sahabi and Ansari by the name of Haritha ibn Nu'man. So he owned a vast amount of land in that area. And so every time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have an apartment needed to be built, he would just give away a section of his land for an apartment to be built for him. So Haritha radiallahu anhu at one point noticed this longing, this almost like sadness on the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for missing Fatima radiallahu anha, because he hadn't seen her in a while and because the house was really far away. So he approaches Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he asks him, Ya Rasulullah, you missed your daughter? I sense that you missed your daughter. You haven't seen her in a while. And he says, yes, I do. And then right away, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also understands that what he's trying to indicate, Haritha radiallahu anhu. So he says, I do definitely, but I did not want to ask you for more of your land because you've already given us so much. I don't want to keep on asking you for that. So I didn't ask you for it. So now keep in mind, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Rasul of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's the head of state here in Medina. He can literally just say to people to give him something or point at something and everybody will just give him whatever he wants. But as you can see, he's very sensitive to people and their needs and their property. So he doesn't just go on around taking advantage of his position and asking people for stuff. So how do you go about now trying to give Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but at the same time make him happy and satisfied with it, so he doesn't feel like he's constantly taking stuff away from you? So Haritha radiallahu anhu, he says to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, Ya Rasulullah, the land that I give to you is more precious and beloved to me than the land that I own myself. So when he says this to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is satisfied that okay, so he is okay with parting with it. So then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes dua for him that may Allah Azza wa Jal grant him a palace and vast land in Jannah in exchange. Subhanallah. So the piece of land that is given to them is right across the road from the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. So the house of Ali and Fatima radiallahu anhu was directly across the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. They had one window in each house, and so the windows and the doors were directly facing each other. It was right across. So moving on with Ali and Fatima radiallahu anhu. So they were constantly, just like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, living in the life of poverty. So they were always struggling with money. And that was the case of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam throughout his whole life, and Ali radiallahu anhu, same thing. So it came to a point where Ali radiallahu anhu was developing back pain because of all the hard labor that he had to do. Fatima radiallahu anha had developed blisters on her hand. So at one point, Ali radiallahu anhu suggests to Fatima radiallahu anha, why don't you go and ask your father, ask Rasulullah for a servant, for a khadim that can come and help us around the house, help you around the house with the chores and whatever needed. So she says, okay, I'll try that. So she goes to the house of Aisha radiallahu anha, just across the house there. But Muhammad is not home. This is Fajr time. So then she goes back. When Muhammad comes home, Aisha radiallahu anha informs him that, Fatima came to see you, you weren't here. So he says, okay. So he goes to their house. He goes to the house of Fatima and Ali radiallahu anhu, knocks on the door. They ask who it is. He introduces himself. And then so they want to get up and quickly clean up the house a little bit before Muhammad enters. But he says, no, no, no. If you guys stay put, stay as you are. Don't worry about it. He comes in. And so they're sitting on their bed beside each other. And so Muhammad comes in. He's like, okay, scoot, make room for me. And he sits in between them. Okay. So he sits right in between them on their bed. So then he asks Fatima radiallahu anha, you came looking for me today. What's up? What did you need? So she says, this, as you can see, our case, what's going on. I was looking to see if you can assign us a servant, a khadim, to come and help me with the house chores. So Muhammad asks her, who told you that, there is servants available to be given? Like, because they had an expedition, some goods, some war booty had come in. So he asked her, like, how do you know? Who told you that there could be a servant available? So she could have said, she could have kind of like thrown in Ali under the bus here, like, oh, like your cousin, or as she referred to her before the marriage, the guy with the big belly. So she could have, but she just says, I just heard that there could be a possibility of getting a khadim. So she doesn't throw him under the bus. So Muhammad says, okay, how about I give you guys something that if you practice this, then it'll be sufficient. Allah Azza wa Jalla will provide for you everything sufficient that you would not need a servant. Okay? That will suffice you for every way. So they're happy. He's like, sure. What is it? Let us know. So this is when Muhammad teaches both of them that before you go to sleep, you recite 33 times Subhanallah, 33 times Alhamdulillah, and 34 times Allahu Akbar, completing the 100. And so after this, they're happy. So Fatima was okay. This is Alhamdulillah. This is great. Are we still getting a khadim? Like, we're gonna do this, okay? But are we still getting a khadim, a servant? And then Muhammad says, no. I cannot give you guys a servant and leave the orphans and the Ahlus Sufa unattended. So orphans, of course, we know. Ahlus Sufa were the Sahaba who did not have a home of their own. They didn't have a house. So in the Masjid al-Nabawi, there was a raised platform. There was a raised platform that they would just live there, basically. So he was saying that they needed to be tended to. So then we have a narration from Ali radiallahu anhu way later down in his life that he says that since that night, I have never ever missed a single night without that recitation, without that dhikr of Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, 33, 30, 34 times. I've never missed it. And he says, Alhamdulillah, since then, since that night, although, we would get tired, we would, pain or whatever it may be, but Alhamdulillah, it was always sufficient for us. It was always sufficient for us that we didn't necessarily need, out of necessity, to have a servant. So Alhamdulillah, that was sufficient for us. So we have a lot of, SubhanAllah, very, very beautiful stories. A couple of them we've already shared the last couple of episodes, and we have a couple more. We shared the one story where Muhammad ﷺ went to their home, and Fatima radiallahu anha was sitting there by herself, and Muhammad ﷺ kind of noticed that there was some tension. Maybe there was a disagreement, there was a quarrel between the husband and wife. So he already picked that up, and he asks her, where is your cousin? So he doesn't say, where's your husband and stuff. So he says, where is your cousin? So she says, he went to the masjid. We had a quarrel, we had a disagreement, and he went to the masjid. So subhanAllah, when Muhammad ﷺ goes to the masjid, finds Ali radiallahu anhu, finds him with some dirt on top of him. So he picks him up, dusts him off, gets the dirt off of him, and that's when he calls him, when he says, "Qum ya Aba Turab," get up, your father of dirt. And then he says, go home to your wife. So this is when Ali radiallahu anhu gets the kunya, the nickname of Abu Turab. And it becomes one of his favorite nicknames because it was given to from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very loving, joking manner. So he really loved that nickname, right? So beyond that, then Ali radiallahu anhu narrates another very fun story. SubhanAllah, he says, one time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, because here's the thing: when you become a neighbor of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it comes with a certain baggage. There are certain things that there's a standard for being the neighbor of the Prophet. Okay, so and one of those standards is that you don't miss Qiyamul Layl and you don't miss Fajr. Okay, so Ali radiallahu anhu narrates that one time Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to wake me up for Qiyamul Layl, and I didn't get up. I didn't wake up. Okay, so later on, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, so Ali radiallahu anhu is narrating this. So he says, he came to me and he said, Ya Ali, I came to wake you up for Qiyam. What happened? You didn't wake up. So, and Ali radiallahu anhu, since very young age, is very wise and very direct and sharp when he wants to be, okay? Even when it comes to joking and fun times. So he says to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in response, is like, Ya Rasulullah, if Allah Azza wa Jal wanted our souls to meet, then he would have had us meet. Okay? So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ali radiallahu anhu, as he's narrating this story, he acts out what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, he acts it out. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam basically slaps his thigh. He slaps his thigh. He turns and he starts walking away, and he recites a part of the ayah. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانَ أَكْثَرَ شَيْئًا جَدَلًا. Indeed, the human being is often, or most of the time, an argumentative being. Okay? وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانَ أَكْثَرَ شَيْئًا جَدَلًا. SubhanAllah. Similar thing now, there's not a rumor, but there's a point where Ali radiallahu anhu was considering marrying another wife. Okay? At the same time, the leaders, tribe leaders in Medina, the elders, the seniors, was suggesting that Ali radiallahu anhu should marry the daughter of none other than Abu Jahl. Because remember, a lot of weddings and that would happen is because getting tribes together, especially if the tribes had bad blood and had animosity with each other in the past, they would, one of the ways to dissolve that is to, marry their children together. So it was suggested, and her name was also Fatima, basically Fatima bint Abu Jahl. So when this got to Fatima radiallahu anha, she was hurt by this, that Ali radiallahu anhu was going to go marry a second wife. And that got to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam basically went to Ali radiallahu anhu, and he said to her that Fatima is part of me. What hurts her hurts me. And then he left it at that. Okay? So definitely Ali radiallahu anhu did not proceed with marrying anybody else. So the whole time that he was married to Fatima radiallahu anha, he did not marry anybody else. Now, some scholars do go as far as saying that at that point of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling him that if you continue with this, it is directly hurting me, upsetting me. Some scholars do mention that at that point, marrying a second wife for Ali radiallahu anhu does reach the level of haram. Because you intentionally do not, as a Muslim, you do not want to go and do something that upsets and angers or hurts Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in any way, intentionally, right? So, but anyways, moving beyond that, so he does not marry anybody else. So there is the poetry of, as we know, Ali radiallahu anhu was very good, alhamdulillah, as like a master level in the language of Arabic, poetry. So there's some poetry that he did for Fatima radiallahu anha, and it's one of his way of showing his romance and love to his wife Fatima radiallahu anha. SubhanAllah, the poem is very high caliber in Arabic. So if we had our beloved Ustaz Aghyad here with us, and if he could break down the Arabic of it for us, we would really appreciate how powerful in the language-wise, linguistically, how powerful this poem is. So I'll go over it with you guys, but subhanAllah, we will notice a little bit of it because he does a lot of wordplay in this poem. So the poem goes basically, so he sees Fatima radiallahu anha using a siwak. So she's using a siwak, and basically he just basically on the spot. This is not something that he put together over time. On the spot, complete freestyle, almost, on the spot. He just comes up with this poem, and it's very powerful. So he says, "Hadita yaud al araki bi fardiha." So the siwak, by the way, is a stick of the arak tree. The tree itself is called the arak tree. So you take a stick of that, that becomes a siwak. So he says, so he uses these words in the poem, right? So adita ya'ud al-araki bi fardiha. So O stick of the arak tree, how dare you? How dare you? There we go. Ama khifta ya'ud al-araki araka. Weren't you afraid, O stick of the arak? Weren't you afraid, O stick of the arak? Araka, like I would see you. So the stick of the arak, araka, like I would see you. So he uses the two arak and araka. There's very similar words, but they mean two different things. Okay? Continues. لو كنت من أهل القتال قتلتك. If you were a person or something that could have been killed, I would have killed you. قتلتك. Okay? Then he goes on. ما فاز مني يا سواك سواك. Okay? ما فاز مني يا سواك سواك. No one has escaped me, O siwak, siwaka, except you. Okay? See how he uses the word siwak, siwak. SubhanAllah, very, very powerful. So again, if we had the Arabic breakdown of this, very, very eloquent, very powerful linguistic Arabic. SubhanAllah. So this is again him showing his love to Fatima radiallahu anha, very romantic moment here. Moving on in their life, so we have at the Battle of Uhud, when Muhammad was injured heavily, Fatima radiallahu anha was there looking after the injured. And also when Muhammad came back, she would be the one looking after him at the time. And at that point, she was pregnant with their first child, Hassan radiallahu anhu. Okay, so that's when he was born just a year after. Now we did mention this briefly before when Hassan radiallahu anhu was born. Ali radiallahu anhu wanted to name him Harb, which means war. Now we mentioned in the biography of Khadija radiallahu anha that they had this understanding. So Muhammad himself would name the sons, and Khadija radiallahu anha would name the daughters. That's the deal that they had with themselves. It seems like Fatima radiallahu anha had made the same deal with Ali radiallahu anhu. Okay? Because Fatima radiallahu anha named their daughters after her sisters. So she had two daughters, okay? And she names them Zainab and Kulthum. Okay? And then the sons, when Hassan is born, Ali radiallahu anhu wants to name him Harb, war. And then Muhammad is like, no, we're not naming him Harb. We're going to name him Hassan, which means excellence, goodness. And then a year later, when Hussein radiallahu anhu is born, again, Ali radiallahu anhu wants to name him Harb, war. And Muhammad is like, no, he's Hussein, the little Hassan, the little source of goodness, excellence. And then they have the two daughters, Zainab and Kulthum. And then they also have a third son. They have a third son who's born. And Muhammad comes, and after the baby is born, Muhammad is like looking at Ali radiallahu anhu, and he's like, you're not naming him Harb. Okay? So at that point, Ali radiallahu anhu is like, look man, I give up, okay? Your daughter is naming our daughters, you're naming my sons, khalas, I give up. You guys name my children as you want. So that third son, Muhammad actually names him Muhassin, which means even the very smaller version of Hassan. However, that third son passes away in infancy. So when he's a baby, as a child, he passes away. So they have the two sons and the two daughters, the grandchildren of Muhammad from Ali and Fatima radiallahu anhu. Okay? We have another beautiful story where Muhammad ﷺ is in his home and he's wearing a very big, wide jubba, like a cloak. Okay, this is striped, this is beautiful. He's wearing it and he's sitting down. And so Hassan radiallahu anhu runs up to him, kind of jumps on him. So he grabs him and puts him under his cloak. Then Hussein radiallahu anhu runs up and he sees something moving there. And he's like, oh, it's got to be Hassan hiding from me. So he runs in and then he opens his cloak and he takes Hussein radiallahu anhu in. Fatima radiallahu anha comes in looking for the two kids and she sees the under his cloak movement. So she's like, that's got to be the kids. So Muhammad ﷺ opens up his jubba and she runs in there and he also wraps her in the cloak at the same time. Now keep in mind this is happening in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. So this narration is coming from Aisha radiallahu anha. You know, like we would not have this story if Aisha radiallahu anha did not choose to narrate this. So imagine like some beautiful event is happening and somebody decides to pick up their phone and take a video or a picture of it, right? So this is what we have Aisha radiallahu anha doing for us. So the three of them going to the cloak and Muhammad ﷺ has all three of them covered in and walks in Ali radiallahu anhu. So Ali radiallahu anhu walks in and everybody's like paused. They're looking at okay, what's going to happen now. And Ali radiallahu anhu sees that, okay, it's the two kids and Fatima under the cloak. And he's like, well, obviously I want in on this. So Muhammad is like, all right, we'll get in here. So he opens the cloak and he jumps under the cloak and he puts all four of them under the jubba, under the cloak, and he makes dua for them that Allah Azza wa Jal wishes to remove any impurities from my family, from the Ahlul Bayt. SubhanAllah. There's also a story of, because both of them were very young when they got married, they would constantly joke and tease each other. So Fatima radiallahu anha would tease Ali radiallahu anhu that she is older than him, even though she was much younger. She was about 7, 8 years younger than Ali radiallahu anhu. But they would always constantly joke back and forth. And again, this goes back to even till I would say a few decades ago, you know, back home, we didn't necessarily have, when somebody would be born, we didn't necessarily jot down the exact day and the month and the year. This is a recent custom that started, right? And it's actually similar. Like I do this with my wife too. Like I always we always tease each other about who's older because we're close in age, but we don't know the exact date. So we always tease each other. It just leaves the kids confused. Okay, it's like which one of you is older. So when an adult comes in, like when our elderly come in and they say that I'm older, and then I say, see, they know, like, see, I have witnesses now that they say I'm older. But when they say she's older, then I say, well, where's your evidence? So I ask them for evidence, and then it just remains in a state of confusion. SubhanAllah. So we spoke about how much Muhammad ﷺ loved his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha, that whenever he would leave the home, he would visit Fatima radiallahu anha last, and when he would return, he would come back right after praying the 2 rak'ah at the masjid. He would come and visit Fatima radiallahu anha first. So there's one, this is getting later on in his life after Fath Makkah even, when he goes to the masjid, prays the 2 rak'ah, comes to the house of his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha, visits her, and then she does the same thing as we've discussed before last episode. She runs up to him, grabs his head, kisses him, kisses his hands, and then she brings him into her spot. And as she's kind of cleaning him off, serving him, she starts to cry. So Muhammad asks her, why is it that you're crying? So she says very, very similar things because she remembers back in the days of Mecca when the persecution was happening. So she says, you know, obviously the persecutions, alhamdulillah, not happening, at least locally here. However, I still see you, that you're pale, your clothes are shabby, and you're not eating well. There is the lack of food. There is the poverty still within us, even though he's the head of state, he's the prophet of God. So she basically has this reminiscence, this remembering of when she was a child, going back all the way to the days of Mecca. So again, very similarly, Muhammad ﷺ reassures her that don't be sad, don't worry. Allah Azza wa Jal has given your father this mission, this task, that Allah Azza wa Jal will give success to, which will enter every single house on the earth, be it in towns, villages, or deserts. So talking about Islam will enter every single house, meaning everybody will at least know about it. It's going to enter the house where people will be aware of Islam. Moving on, one of the hardest times for Fatima radiallahu anha was the death of Rasulullah. So we spoke before, whenever Fatima radiallahu anha would enter the home and Muhammad was sitting, he would get up, go up to her, kiss her head, and then bring her and sit her down where he was sitting. When Muhammad was basically on his deathbed, when he was severely ill, when he could barely get up and even pray, the last time that Fatima radiallahu anha enters, comes to this home, and now Muhammad subhanAllah, because he's so ill and so weak, he can't get up anymore. He cannot get up and walk up to her to grab her and kiss her and bring her to where he was sitting. So however, he does, because he was lying down, he sits up. He sits up. And again, remember, this was all happening, his final days was in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. So again, Aisha radiallahu anha is narrating that I witnessed and I noticed that him sitting up was the most amount of energy that he had spent in the last few days, because he couldn't move easily. But because Fatima radiallahu anha came in, so he still exerted all his energy that he had to at least sit up for her. So he welcomes her, asks her to come in and sit beside him. So they share a few moments, and these are the final moments that they share with each other, subhanAllah. And Muhammad tells Fatima radiallahu anha, calls her close, and he whispers in her ear, and she starts crying. She backs away, and then she starts crying with a very heavy heart, very profusely, very sad. She is crying. And again, remember how much Muhammad loves Fatima, so he cannot take her sadness, her heartbreak, right? Remember when she was so hurt when they had put the innards of the animal, the camel, on top of Muhammad and he made the dua against the elite of the Quraysh at the time. And so now, when he sees Fatima radiallahu anha heartbroken and sad and crying, he calls her back to come in, and then he can whisper something to her ear again. And this time, when he whispers something in her ear, she backs away, she becomes happy, she's joyful, and she's laughing. And remember now, Aisha Danha is not only narrating this, but she's witnessing all this. So she's happy, she's laughing, and then she gets up and leaves. So she hugs, and it's the last hug, the last kiss that he gives to her father, and then he leaves. And she leaves after that. That's the last time they spent together. So Aisha radiallahu runs after Fatima radiallahu anha. So she's asking her, what did he say to you? First time he said something, you started crying. Second time you started laughing. What's going on? So even this narration, again, we would not know if it wasn't for the curiosity of Aisha radiallahu anha. Initially though, Fatima radiallahu anha says to her that, you know what, I'm not ready to share this with you yet. I'm not ready to share this with you right now. This is private between me and my dad, so I can't say anything right now. So later on, after the passing and the burial of Muhammad she does come up to Aisha radiallahu anha, and she says, you know, you asked me this a while ago, so I'll tell you now. So she says that the first time he called me over, he told me that this is it for me. Like, I'm not going to live beyond this. I'm going to die. I'm going to leave this world. So therefore, I was very sad at that. The second time he called me over, he told me that I'll be the first person from his family that's going to pass away and go meet him, which will be very soon, right? Because the next person that dies within his family, it would be her, and then therefore she would go and be with him again after that. So then we actually have the death of Muhammad sallallahu. So when he passes away, Aisha radiallahu anha lets out a very loud scream, and right from across, because Fatima radiallahu anha's house is right across them, so she hears, then she knows what happened. She understands that now my father has passed away. And so she also has this very beautiful poetry. So she says, Ya abata min rabbihi ma adna, Ya abata ila jibrila lan'a, Ya abata jannatul firdausi ma'wa. How close you are now to your Rabb, to Jibril we announce your death, and Jannatul Firdaus is your final abode, resting place. SubhanAllah, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu narrates that when we finished burying Rasulullah and we were coming back, when we turned back, she was standing there, Fatima radiallahu anha, and she asks them, how did you guys bring yourself to throw dirt on the face of Rasulullah? We can imagine ourselves, imagine we're standing there, we know who Rasulullah is, how much we love him, how much we would like to sacrifice and give him. And now that he's passed away, we need to bury him. SubhanAllah, can we imagine, like even though it is his lifeless body, but to throw dirt in the grave on his face. SubhanAllah. So Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu narrates that I answered her by saying that we had to deny our hearts. And to understand that better in today, it's like we almost had to switch off our humanity and become robots. That is the only way that we could complete this action. Our hearts, our feelings, our emotions, we literally had to put it aside to get the job done. That is the only way we could get this done. So she turns away and goes home. So shortly after this, Fatima radiallahu anha herself falls severely ill. Okay, she falls ill right away. And after the death of Rasulullah, Ibn Ali radiallahu anhu narrates that her will to live, to continue living, had come to an end. Like her will to live had basically finished. Because that's how much she was attached and loved her father. Okay, so she became ill. She calls Asma bint Umais radiallahu anha, and she gives her instructions that when I pass for my burial, make sure it happens at nighttime. Make sure I'm covered well, because of her haya and modesty, she didn't want her figure to be shown, and she wanted to be done at nighttime, so there's not a big gathering and not a lot of people, just to get it done quietly. And subhanAllah, Salama radiallahu anha prepares, she had brought a very thick cloth which they use for her as the kafan that she had brought from Yemen. And subhanAllah, Salama, if you recall from a couple of episodes ago, Salama was one of the community members that had decorated her house when she was getting married with Ali radiallahu anhu. When she moved into the house, she was one of the people responsible for decorating the house. And now, subhanAllah, she's also the one that's bringing the kafan for Fatima radiallahu anha. SubhanAllah. And she had that thick cloth to cover her well from Habasha, Abyssinia. Sorry. Then after that, she has her final moments with her family, with the kids, and then Ali radiallahu anha. So she says to Ali radiallahu anhu, actually, like because she knows she's going to pass away now, it's pretty much the end for her. She actually tells Ali radiallahu anhu who he should go and marry after her, because she knows he's a man, he needs a wife, but also the kids. So she actually tells him that who he should go marry to look after the kids, because they were still not fully adults yet. They were young kids. SubhanAllah. And so it's narrated that on her final day, she's in her backyard, basically, today's understanding, her courtyard, and she's lying down, she's looking into the stars, and this is in the month of Ramadan. This is the first Ramadan that Muhammad ﷺ is not with the community. So you imagine, subhanAllah, that Muhammad ﷺ, of all the prayers and all the Ramadans, the fasting, that he's been there with the community, this is the first Ramadan that Muhammad ﷺ is not with them. Okay? So this is already hard enough, especially for a lot of people in Ali radiallahu anhu. And it's in this month of Ramadan that Fatima radiallahu anha passes away only at the age of 27. She's 27 years old and she passes away in month of Ramadan. So Ali radiallahu anhu is the one that climbs down into the grave, receives her, puts her in the grave, does the janazah, prays the janazah over her, and she's buried. There's a lot of similarities, subhanAllah, between Ali radiallahu anhu and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lost Abu Talib and then Khadija radiallahu anha in a very short span of time. Okay? Very similarly now, Ali radiallahu anhu loses Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in a very short span of time, Fatima radiallahu anha. Okay? And he's very similarly, as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam climbed into the grave, received Khadija radiallahu anha and buried her, same thing, Ali radiallahu anhu climbs into the grave, receives Fatima radiallahu anha and buries her, does the janazah. And later on in his life, subhanAllah, he even narrates, Ali radiallahu anhu, that he went through so many things. He went through many battles, many wars, the fitna that happened, the betrayals that he faced when he was the Khalifa. All of that, he says, I did not have so much difficulty, so much pain in my entire life that when I lost those two back to back. That when I lost Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the love of my life back to back in a short span of time. Okay? So he says that was the hardest part of my life. Now, here he is standing at the grave of Fatima radiallahu anha. And again, this is a poem that he has, subhanAllah, very, very powerful, very sad. So I'm going to skip the Arabic, I'll just share the English. So after the burial, after the janazah, people are gone. He's just standing there by the grave of Fatima radiallahu anha. And he recites his poetry. He says, what is wrong with me? Standing at the graveside, saying salam to the one who has passed. The grave of my beloved, but she does not respond. My beloved, why are you not responding to my salam? Have you forgotten all the intimate moments that we shared? And he's known to periodically be pausing and crying as he's saying this poetry. So he pauses for a while, and then he continues the poem, but now he continues the poem from a response of Fatima radiallahu anha, like what is she saying now from beyond the grave? So he says the poem on her behalf. My beloved one responds, how can I respond when I have been consumed by stones and dirt? The dirt has consumed my beauty, and that is why I have moved on. I have been veiled from my family and beloved ones, so my salam back to you and to them. So, subhanAllah. Now, Ali radiallahu anhu continues his life as we know. He moves on. He marries other women. He has many other children from them. The next phase of Ali radiallahu anhu's life is very, very vast. There's a lot of history that happens even before he becomes the Khalifa, because he lives through the Khilafah of Abu Bakr Siddiq, the Khilafah of Umar radiallahu anhu, Khilafah of Uthman, and then the fitna happens and he becomes the Khalifa. So there's a lot. It is a very, very vast amount of history here. However, we don't have that time to cover all of it, but in summary, he remains a major advisor to all the three Khulafa before him, very, very senior, important member of the senior council of the Sahaba in the community in Medina. When he becomes the Khalifa himself, it is definitely during the fitna which starts within the last 2 years of the Khilafah of Uthman radiallahu anhu, to a point where Ali radiallahu anhu at that point didn't even want to become the Khalifa. He refused when he was approached by the Ummah to become the Khalifa and take over the state. He refused multiple times. until eventually he accepted, because everybody was telling him that you are the most qualified person to take care of the ummah and at this state. And so, subhanAllah, he does. And the one thing I noticed, by the way, one sad part is because of the fitna that was happening and because of the disagreements and the battles that ended up happening between Ali radiallahu anhu and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, is that majority of the history, majority of the highlights, it highlights the fitna and the battles and the quarrels and the disagreements. But there is, subhanAllah, so much still, even with all of that, with all the fitna, there is a lot of khair and good and spread of Islam during the Khilafah of Ali radiallahu anhu. There's still a lot of good and beauty and spread of the Islamic land and the people. That still happens quite a lot. So it doesn't come to a halt. However, Ali radiallahu anhu does have to deal with a lot of governors who disobey him and they betray him. They sometimes he's constantly has to keep everybody in check. There's only very few people that he trusts. And again, as we know, just again to summarize, the quarrel or the disagreement that he had with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was that because Ali radiallahu anhu was in Medina, he saw how bad the level of fitna was. When he received the Khilafah, he became the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He wanted to establish himself. He wanted to stabilize the situation, stable the ummah, stable his authority with the people, with the leaders, before he would go and take into custody and punish the group, because it wasn't just a couple of people. There was a large group of people that had assassinated and murdered Uthman radiallahu anhu. Whereas Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was saying that because he was related to Uthman radiallahu anhu, he was his cousin, he was basically asking for his right of qisas. He was saying, my family member was killed and I want qisas. I want retribution. I want either you hand them over to me and I'll deal with them, or you deal with them as Amir al-Mu'mineen. And I want to do that now as an urgent matter. And Ali radiallahu anhu was saying that I have to first, because for him, establishing the Khilafah himself as the Khalifa, the Amir al-Mu'mineen, was more of an urgent matter. And so this is what they did, because both of them, by the way, both of them had valid reasons for their opinion. Definitely the more correct one was Ali radiallahu anhu, because the establishment of the Khilafah and the establishment position of the Khalifa is a more urgent matter. Definitely that is a more correct opinion. But Muawiyah radiallahu anhu also had a Shari'i reason behind what he was asking for. Okay? And so for that reason, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu held back his bay'ah to Ali radiallahu anhu. Although he agreed that Ali radiallahu anhu was the most qualified person to be the Khalifa, the Amir al-Mu'mineen. Muawiyah himself did not go and nominate himself to become the Khalifa. He did not want that position. He actually said that Ali deserves the most to be the Amir al-Mu'mineen. It's just that he held back his bay'ah from him, which led to some unfortunate battles. There was 3 groups of Muslims. One group that sided with Ali radiallahu anhu, one group that sided with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and then there was a third group that was not 100% sure which group is more right than the other. Okay? So from a Shari'i perspective, keep in mind that if any one of them came to the conclusion to say Ali radiallahu anhu is right or Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is right, then they didn't have a choice of staying neutral. They would have to participate. Okay, from a Sharia reason, they would have to participate. But because they were not sure as to which one is right, which one is wrong, they remained neutral, meaning they did not get involved with it, to siding with them or fighting on their side when the couple of battles that happened between Ali and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. So moving beyond that, inshallah, so this phase of Ali radiallahu anhu and his dispute with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, inshallah, we will be addressing later on as we discuss other Sahaba and we go through other Sahaba's biographies. For example, Zubair ibn al-Awwam, his cousin, Talha radiallahu anhu, a few other Sahaba, inshallah, when we do their biographies, we're going to revisit this moment, and I don't want to repeat, and also it's very, very large history. So just going to forward now towards the end of the life of Ali radiallahu anhu. So the Khawarij, again, remember, this is the group that initially started the fitna with a couple of years before the end of the murder of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Yes, question? Yeah, bring the mic close. Mhm. No, no. At that point, because remember, Ali radiallahu anhu, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had made comments about other Sahaba also. Okay, so it wasn't exclusive to Ali radiallahu anhu. And the term where he uses Mawla or Imam, the words that he used for Ali radiallahu anhu, does not always necessarily mean the next political leader. Okay, um, Muhammad sallallahu would have made it very vividly clear that if the Ummah was supposed to appoint, or he would have said that after me, Ali is going to be the next. He would have made it very vividly clear. Um, we actually have evidence to the contrary, right? Um, Definitely, there's so many quotes about the three other Sahaba before Ali radiallahu anhu also. Like he said about Abu Bakr Siddiq, he was the only one that when Muhammad sallallahu could not get up and pray because of his illness, he instructed that Abu Bakr is to lead the prayer. And even though Aisha radiallahu anha said to Muhammad sallallahu that, you know, my father is a very emotional man. If he is to stand in your place to lead the salah, he's just going to get very emotional. He's going to start crying a lot. He might not even be able to lead the salah. May I suggest that we get Omar to lead the salah? And Muhammad says, absolutely not. I'm telling you, it is going to be Abu Bakr and nobody else. Okay? Um, about Umar radiallahu anhu, what did he say? So many things, so many things. Like one of the biggest things, if anything, I would say if the Umar should have chosen, this probably is one of the reasons why even Abu Bakr Siddiq chose Umar, you know, when after the death of Muhammad sallallahu he chose Umar as a person for the Ummah to put as a Khalifa. Muhammad sallallahu said about Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu that, you know, if there was to be a prophet after me, it would have been you. Okay, I mean, there's nothing bigger that somebody can say about another human being that he says, I'm the seal of prophethood, but if there was to be a prophet after me, it would have been you. Okay? Uthman radiallahu anhu, is it? So the sorry, I just lost track of my time with that. And then we have Uthman radiallahu anhu. Uthman radiallahu anhu. We have Subhanallah. Muhammad sallallahu trusted him with two of his daughters. So one daughter he married, and as she passed away, he married the next one. And after she passed away, Muhammad sallallahu even told Uthman radiallahu anhu that, you know, if I had 100 daughters and they were passing away, each one you married would pass away, I would marry all of them to you, one after the other, right? And of course, like again, is a lot of detailed history that we can go about all of them. Even like, look, here's the thing: if Ali radiallahu anhu understood that he was supposed to be the political leader after Muhammad sallallahu, he wouldn't just sit there and not say anything or not do anything. He would definitely, you know, say something about it. But he didn't. He did the opposite. He went and gave bay'ah to Abu Bakr, Uthman, Umar radiallahu anhu after that. Okay. So, khair inshallah. Um, moving beyond that, the Khawarij, subhanAllah, who had started the corruption, the fitna, which led to the killing and the assassination of Uthman radiallahu anhu, there's three of them that plan, and one of them say, you know, the one of the root causes of the problem is Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, who was at the time the governor in Egypt. The other one says the another root cause is Muawiyah. The other one says it's Ali. So the three of them basically say, here's what we're going to do. They plan that on the same day, they're going to go and assassinate all three of them at Fajr prayer. Okay, so on one day, the plan was to assassinate all three of them. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, Amr ibn al-As, and Ali radiallahu anhu. Okay? So when the time comes, so they disperse, they go to the separate locations. When the time comes, when the assassin goes to um, murder Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, again, he's leading the Fajr Salah, he jumps, and it's the poison knife. They start stabbing, he starts stabbing the person, and then he's happy. He says, Allah Akbar, I've killed Amr ibn al-As. So as he moves back, and then the person who he had stabbed, turns out it wasn't Amr ibn al-As. That day, subhanAllah, Amr ibn al-As was so severely ill, he was at home, he didn't actually come to lead the salah, even though he would lead the salah at Fajr every single day. That day he was ill, and he couldn't make it. So whoever stepped up, he ended up getting killed and became a shaheed. Similarly with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, the person jumps him, tries to stab, but he gets caught. He gets caught before, he gets a little injured, but he gets caught, he gets overpowered, and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu lives on. And then we have the name of a person, the Abdurrahman ibn Muljim. Abdurrahman ibn Muljim, this person is the one that attacks Ali radiallahu anhu with the knife and stabs him multiple times, subhanAllah, which leads to his death. However, he doesn't die directly right away on the spot, and we have his last nasiha, his last meeting that he has with his sons. Okay, so he calls his children Hassan, Hussein, and Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. So Muhammad is also one of his kids. Okay, so the three sons of his is sitting beside him in his deathbed at this point, and he has his basic final parting advice to his sons. So he says, I advise you with the taqwa of Allah. If I die because of this, then it's a blow for blow. So that person who had stabbed Ali radiallahu at this point, he still was not killed yet. He was taken as a prisoner. So he says, if I die, then it's qisas basically. Then you go, it's, you know, as we say, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So he dies. Then he goes on to say, do not desire the dunya even if it calls you for it. Do not cry over something that gets away from you, and seek the truth. Have mercy on the orphan, assist the lost, the traveler, work for the next life, and be the opponent of the oppressor and the supporter of the oppressed. Act on what is in the book of Allah, and do not fear those who will blame you for doing what is right. Then he turns to his son Muhammad, who's the youngest. He says, have you learned what I have advised your brothers with? He says, yes. He says, I advise you with the same, and I advise you to have respect for your brothers because the great right they have upon you, because they're the grandchildren of Rasulullah. Do not undertake any affair without them. So take their opinion, okay? Then he turns back to Hassan and Hussein, who says, I advise you to take care of him, for he is your brother and the son of your father, and you know that your father loved him. I advise all of you to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil. And he kept on advising up until he passed away. He dies as a shaheed, as a martyr, at the age of 63, the 40th year of Hijrah, on a Sunday night. He was washed by Hassan, Hussein, Abdullah bin Ja'far, so their cousin. Hassan radiallahu anhu leads the janazah, and that is the end of the biography of Ali radiallahu anhu. May Allah Azza wa Jal be pleased with them. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us their companions. May Allah Azza wa Jal guide us to walk their path the way they did, the way they lived their lives. They sacrificed for the sake of the deen, for the cause of the deen, and Allah Azza wa Jal. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Any thoughts, comments, questions? One thing I want to go back to, we mentioned how much Muhammad ﷺ loved his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha, to a point where when people would persecute Muhammad ﷺ, hurt him physically, he would not make dua against anybody. For example, Taif. But at one time, when he saw Fatima radiallahu anha really hurt and upset when she was trying to get the animal innards off of Muhammad ﷺ by the Kaaba, and she was crying and heartbroken and sad. He couldn't take it, and he made dua against everybody, the enemies that were sitting there. SubhanAllah, there's one very famous story that we know, but I want you guys to look at this story from this angle now, okay? How much Muhammad ﷺ loved his daughter Fatima, what we just mentioned, even when he would leave, she would be the last person that he would meet. When he would return from a journey, she would be the first person he would meet. So his love for his daughter is immeasurable, so high. Then there's a specific point in Medina when one of the elite of the women uh, steals something. She's caught. And the had of the cutting of the hand is to be applied to her. So the people go to one of the most beloved to Muhammad sallam, Osama ibn Zayd ibn al-Haritha. They ask him, go to Muhammad sallam and ask him for an excuse, because she's a high member of society, she's from the elite class, maybe we can punish and fine and stuff, but maybe not apply the had, in case we can relieve her of that. So he comes to Muhammad sallam, Osama radiallahu anhu, and what does Muhammad sallam say? Muhammad sallam says that even if this was Fatima bint Muhammad caught in this crime, I would cut off her hand. We just noticed how much he loves Fatima radiallahu anha. Now we see that when it comes to the application of the ahkam of Allah, when it comes to the hukum of Allah Azza wa Jalla, when it comes to applying justice equally, no nepotism, applying justice on society, there is no exception. Even though we just witnessed how much he loves Fatima radiallahu anha. Okay? So subhanAllah, we have people that go around saying so many things about Islam and women and unjust and this and that. But here is the person that we get Islam from, the person that is our Uswat al-Hasana, our ultimate role model. How we should be applying Islam and justice on the society, that there is no exceptions. There's no nepotism there. SubhanAllah. May Allah give us the ability to live as such, like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments? What did you guys pick up today from today's session? I don't know if you guys watched the previous ones or not, but was there? You want to give him the mic? What maybe stood out to you from today's session? Okay, go ahead. Mm. Yeah. And what about yourself? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So work on some poetry now. I'm not sure if you watched the previous episodes, but if you haven't, go back, inshallah, because we talk about how they get married and how the community gets involved. So I think there's a lot, inshallah, there that you can benefit from. Their get together, because we have Ali radiallahu anhu narrating to his son Hassan radiallahu anhu of the story of their marriage. So alhamdulillah, inshallah, there's a lot of good stuff there itself. How about yourself, Akhi Ann? Anything that stood out? What's going on here? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, subhanAllah. And one thing that we overlook sometimes when Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is our Uswat al Hasana, the best, the ultimate role model that we have, He would not say that if we were incapable of being like Him. You see, Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, like, I do not burden any soul beyond what he can bear. So if we could not be like Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right, then Allah Azza wa Jal would not call him our role model in the Quran. So we can be like him in his actions, like how he prayed, how he conducted himself, how he loved his children, like we just talked about the practice, how he loved Fatima radiallahu anha, right? So we can learn from his actions and we can do that. So the fact that we think and we say to ourselves that we cannot be like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's not true because Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, He's your role model. So definitely we have the capability of being like him. That's why Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us to be like him, right? To learn from him. Yeah, subhanAllah, like there's so many human-sized stories. Like, for example, Abu Bakr, Umar, radiallahu anhu, what they would do is they would go and just to joke with Ali, radiallahu anhu, they would go and pick up Hassan, radiallahu anhu, and they would kind of like pick him up and throw him in the air. Or Umar like would put him up on his shoulders. And then they would say to Ali, Ya Ali, this son of yours doesn't look anything like you. He looks like his grandfather, like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Hassan radiallahu anhu looked very, very similar to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like when he grew up, when he became an adult, like his height, his body, his face, his torso, everything was like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So even as a kid, he looked like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, but this actually made Ali radiallahu anhu happy. You know, it was like he's happy that his son looks more like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam than himself, right? He was happy about that. So there's always this love and joke and fun relationship that they have with each other. SubhanAllah. Did you want to say something? Inshallah. Okay. All right. Jazakallah khair. May I bless you guys for attending and participating. Inshallah. Next week we will start with the. Did I say who it is? Or leave it as a teaser? What's that? A hint? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to give a hint without giving it away. Hmm. It depends. It usually depends on who the Sahabi is. Sometimes there's nothing I can do but give the name directly. But he's not Ahlul Bayt, no. Not Ahlul Bayt. Maybe I'll just tell you his name, and then you guys don't say it in case for other people to show up. Just let me know if you know who that is. Just raise your hand. So Abdullah ibn Uthman, radiallahu anhu. You guys know who that is? Don't say it. Just raise your hand if you know who that is. Okay, so khair inshallah. That's who we're going to be talking about. You know him, by the way. Just so you know him. It's just that his name escapes everybody. Okay? All right. جزاك الله خير guys. My best to بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.